If you look closely at Canadian space astronaut Jeremy Hansen, it appears that he is wearing two watches, but one of those is Archer. Artemis 2 astronauts wear wristband devices that continuously monitor their movement and their sleep throughout the mission. This data is going to be used for real-time health monitoring and safety assessments. And what they've completed pre-flight and will complete in post-flight evaluations help us get deeper insights into their cognition and behavior, their teamwork, of course, and their sleep quality in the deep space environment and inside Orion. Archer stands for Artemis Research for Crew Health and Readiness. And everything we learned from this test flight helps us prepare for future mission planning and crew support systems.
Integrity exercise complete. Thank you.
Thanks, Integrity. We copy.
As you heard the call from pilot Victor Glover, he has completed exercise and was very kind enough to give us a view inside the cabin while he was exercising. We previously have seen the views from outside the cabin while the crew is exercising and how that imparts movement on the spacecraft. Now the crew is getting into their midday meal. Again, we were expecting to have a burn in 10 minutes, so if you are tuned in and looking for the outbound trajectory correction burn, that has been canceled for today. It was deemed unnecessary because our targeting was so accurate for the translunar injection burn. Again, that translunar injection burn came last night at 6:49 p.m. Central Time, 5 minutes and 50 seconds, using the Orbital Maneuvering Systems engine on the Orion spacecraft. And when you hear the crew call down and discuss their PCDs, that portable computing device, it's exactly what you see Hansen and Glover using right now, those tablets that allow them to track what they've been up to in the spacecraft, monitor their timelines, and communicate through email.
Houston Integrity, AGA readings when ready.
All right, we'll take them.
CO2 1.0, O2 20.1, temperature 75.7, cabin pressure 14.2 psi.
Copy all, and we believe we copied CO2 1.0. Just want to confirm.
One decimal zero, 1.0, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And a question, do you guys always want these called down, or is a crew note enough?
And our preference is call down. Just helps us keep in sync with you guys real time.
Copy.
With the completion of this block of exercise for today, Glover calling down readings from the AGA, the Anomaly Gas Analyzer. Those readings are requested before and after exercise, so they leave the device on throughout the time period that they are using that flywheel device. This helps teams on the ground monitor what the levels in the cabin are for the various molecules that Glover called out, and those are reported in parts per million. And we have just passed 2 days mission elapsed time. 2 days since the launch of Orion, atop the Space Launch System spacecraft from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, a very smooth ride uphill. We are now 3 days and 19 minutes away from the opening of our lunar flyby, targeted for flight day 6, when the crew will fly around the moon, the first time in over 50 years for humans to do so. This is Artemis Mission Control, 2 days and 14 minutes mission elapsed time for the first flight of humans aboard Orion. And I am joined here by Paul Boehm, Orion Crew Support and Thermal Systems Manager. Thank you for joining us, Paul.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Leah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about your role. You just came from the Orion mission evaluation room. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, I just did. I was just checking our systems to see how things were going, and I am really pleased. So my role is I manage the hardware related to crew and all the crew systems on the vehicle, the ECLA system, the thermal systems, the suits, the flight crew equipment that are on the vehicle. And so been doing that for almost 14 years now.
Wow, that's impressive. And when we're talking about the ECLA system, that stands for Environmental Control and Life Support System. So what all makes up ECLAS?
ECLAS, yes. The biggest thing everybody thinks about for ECLAS is the life support system, the pressurization system, the air revitalization system that we have, and then the other parts of it that are also part of it is the thermal aspect of it, where we're cooling the air to be able to keep the crew temperature down exactly where they want it to be comfortable in the cabin. And so that is also part of our system as well.
Yeah, we heard them make some calls a couple days ago about being a little chilly, and your team is the one that works on making sure they're cool.
Yes, we've been working at the last couple of days, trying some adjustments. One of the things I will stress with the new vehicle, we are learning every single type that we're flying right now, especially with the crew in it. We learned something about the systems there, but now we have the crew involved, which adds a whole new dynamic to the vehicle, and that is what is really what we're looking at today, and learning how to interact with the crew and adjust things if we need to make it comfortable.
You also work with the systems a little bit as well, so they're actually getting from a meal. We've been fortunate to have in-cabin views some of today, and we saw them eat their food. So can you tell us about Food Warmer?
Yeah, the food system is the crew's food that we use is very similar to what they fly on ice. It's the rehydrated food, and what we use Orion, we have a Food Warmer. That's a little suitcase-sized device, and our biggest challenge is mass and volume on Orion. And so we had to decide, we would love to fly, we just can't because of the mass and volume challenge. So in this case, it basically the crew inserts the food into this case. It's a warming plate, and heats it up to about 150 degrees.
Oh, that's much warmer than I expected you to say. That's really impressive.
It's a piece for doing the hot drinks, warming up the food that needs to be warmed up, so it tastes better when it's warmer. And so they can put packages in there to be able to eat those and be able to have some hot food in flight.
I used to be a tester here, and so I always found it to be really good.
It's amazing what it can do.
Yes, it really is. So tell us about the ecosystem, how it's performed so far now, 3 days in.
Yeah, I am extremely excited right now because it is actually better than our predictions, which is really great. The ecobacs that we're flying for the first time in the spacecraft, relying on it. The system is now performing what we thought it was going to do. It's not so really low levels, and the crew's so far been the winner of it.
That's incredible news. So you're talking a little bit about how this is the first flight with crew. Everything you're doing is learning. What is your team to learn on this mission?
So the biggest thing we're doing, number one right now, as I mentioned earlier, was because it is the time we're doing it, we're learning how to tweak things, we have heaters, and we have the systems like the CO2 system I mentioned earlier. We're learning how to balance all those things as we work with the crew, because each crew member is different metabolically. We have different rates that crews have as they're doing different exercises, like you saw them exercise earlier today, versus when you're doing a meal, you have a very metabolic rate. So those variables really change how we interact with crew with our system. And so that's really what we're going to say is how our system interacts with you.
We need a few minutes. We'll see you when is a good time.
Call from crew about performing a wastewater dump. We actually had earlier from inside the cabin. It was fascinating. Talking about going to the future, but we've also had similar hardware space station for the past 25 years. So what are some of the hardware that we have on Orion and versus what we have on the space station?
Yeah, our biggest difference is we are a deep space vehicle. You have that very long turn, and there's no back into when you do that translator that we have today. And so it's going to be many days before we connect. So when we designed Orion, we really looked at the ECLAS system to try to figure out how can we make it simpler. And then some of the systems that we have, as I mentioned, the CO2 removal system, we need a regenerable system such that you weren't flying samples that you had to use up or get replaced. That a lot of things. I calculated one, about 150 pascals worth of lithium hydroxide canister we need do 21-day mission with Orion versus our current system, which takes about 16 basketballs to be able to go do that. So the system, it essentially removes carbon dioxide from the cabin air, dumps it over, and those items are recyclable. Every time you expose to the vacuum, they regenerate, and now you can expose it back to the cabin area and remove more CO2. So it's those regenerable type systems. We flew some examples of this on ISS to see how that went. This is the first time we're actually flying with this type of spacecraft and completely relying on it.
Wow, amazing. And we'll talk about the anomaly gas analyzer, taking those readings and calls down from about what they have happened. So how does your team take that data and interpret it?
So the biggest thing we have is limits on CO2 levels that we try to maintain without getting too sick, but I will. It's 4 millimeters of mercury is level that we rely on. And basically, we use those AGA measures against that level that we're at. And so I believe it's about 0.4 millimeters here on the ground that we're breathing. And so we stay as low as possible carbon dioxide. So, and the readings that we're seeing right now are actually kind of phenomenal for us spacecraft. So it's great.
Wow, that is great. Well, congratulations to you and your team on a great bar, and we will be keeping an eye on everything as we move forward. But Paul, thank you for joining us here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a great flight so far.
Houston Integrity, you are go for Blizzard.
Copy, go for Blizzard. Christina, while I've got you and the crew, I have some information regarding a replan for the afternoon. Shouldn't require too much back and forth, but let me know. First is we don't have any other vehicle statuses from what we've already told you. So unless you guys have questions for us, we were going to go ahead and cancel the flight director crew conference that's in 10 minutes. We also are going to do a little bit of a replan with you guys managing the afternoon post midday meal, basically after the event. We'd like to give you a bit more time for exercise and letting back that band SAT mode DFTO a little bit. And then exercise after that means that you'll have to manage that pre-lunar flight cabin config activities amongst yourselves, which will allow us to get in all exercise and have a fun POO event for that advanced SAT mode DFTO. The DSN EMERCOM DFTO needs to stay where it is. Some vehicle maneuvers happen to that.
Hey, Chris, let me just make sure we can defer the S-band SAT mode DFTO, but do the DSN EMERCOM on time? And Chris, if it's you, Victor and I exercise, so he is more than happy to do the S-band SAT mode DFTO on time.
Thanks, Reed. Just talking down here with the team to make sure I got the right words to give you. We'd like that S-band SAT mode DFTO to slide 30 minutes to the right for some grounding, but then the EMERCOM to stay right.
Okay, that sounds good. Ike will be ready 30 late for S-band SAT mode, but if you could also please get us up when your ending is done, right? That could help us.
Absolutely. We'll go. The other thing we want to remind you is that in your midday meal, we have a 1 hour forward DSN LOS, but for most of that, we've got return. And kind of in the middle of your midday meal period, you'll notice there's, like I mentioned, this good Earth movement. It's also roughly when you're going to pass close to the halfway point between the Earth and the Moon, and you can reference your altitude on the PFD.
Yeah, crazy. We're seeing 105,205 miles, and it's pretty quick. Thanks for all that, Chris.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy your lunch.
Those calls from Capcom capsule communicator Chris Birch, also a NASA astronaut here in Mission Control Houston, up to the crew aboard Orion, named Integrity. This view of Artemis Mission Control, the Orbit 1 team still on console. The crew was enjoying their midday meal. We do not have fresh foods flying on Artemis 2. Orion doesn't have refrigeration or a late load capability prior to launch that we need for fresh foods. So we have shelf-stable foods aboard Orion and rehydratable foods that the crew is used to on the International Space Station. As we saw in the earlier video, the Artemis 2 crew had direct input into the food available during the flight. They were able to sample and rate all of the foods on the menu, and prices were balanced with the nutritional requirements needed and what Orion can accommodate. Back to the live view of Artemis 2 crew. We just spoke with Paul Boehm, Orion crew support and thermal systems manager, telling us a little bit more about the food warmer on Orion. So if the crew needed to heat up any of the foods that they are eating today, they were able to do so with a approximately briefcase-sized food warmer to heat the meals as needed.
Integrity Houston, sorry to interrupt your lunch, but we have a commanding request prior to CPR demo during the forward LOS. Let me know when you're ready.
Go ahead, Chris.
All right, because you'll be starting the CPR demo activity while we're in that LOS, we would like you to first confirm we are in coast to default 4100, and then please put all 4 saws into Safe Harbor A, then start the CPR demo. I'll copy.
Okay, Chris, before starting CPR demo, we will verify coast default 4100, and we will command all 4 saws to Safe Harbor A.
Good read back. Thanks so much. Integrity courtesy call, not knowing your preference. We did have video of Victor, which we have stopped going out on our PAO stream.
going out, but we also understand if you want to restrict, no problem either way.
Okay.
Copy all. I will update our now growing crew preferences sheet. Thank you.
Back with views aboard Orion as the crew continues their midday meal. NASA astronaut Victor Glover having completed his exercise. Cleaning up in space. Obviously, we do not have showers aboard the Orion spacecraft. This is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Getting a live look inside the Orion spacecraft. They are still...
Integrity, toilet will be available throughout the LOS.
The crew is timelined in their midday meal right now. Obviously, they have mostly finished eating, but the ground teams also let them know they should have some great views of the moon and the Earth outside of their windows, should they choose to take pictures at this time. As we saw earlier, there are also timelined wastewater dumps from Orion, and during that time the crew is instructed to not use the toilet. So the crew is about to go into an LOS, loss of signal, while they're on the Deep Space Network, and the ground teams here were calling to let them know that there will be no wastewater dumps scheduled during that time, so they'll be able to use the toilet as they need. This view outside the Orion spacecraft, you can see those solar arrays positioning. And a reminder, you can keep up with where Orion is at any time by visiting nasa.gov/track-Artemis. Currently, the spacecraft is 122,500 miles away from Earth and 146,000 miles away from the moon. Up next on the Artemis 2 cruise timeline today will be the CPR demo. Ground teams have requested that as the crew conducts this demonstration with choking and CPR responses in the cabin, that they configure one of the cameras for recording. They'll be able to use the footage captured for this for future training use. We are 2 days, 1 hour, 3 minutes into the flight of Artemis 2, the first flight of crew aboard Orion. Spacecraft now 123,000 miles away from Earth. You're getting a live look inside the capsule as our 4 crew members, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Jeremy Hansen, and Christina Cook, are wrapping up their midday meal, getting the opportunity to take photos out the window of Earth and the Moon. We are in an LOS period, loss of signal from the ground side. This was tracked and communicated to the crew. However, we do receive communications from the crew members. Obviously, we have their live video right now. Inside Orion, you see they have dimmed the cabin lights. They have this option to allow them to get better views outside the window so there aren't any reflections from that lighting onto the windows. Being that we are 123 miles away from Earth and that distance continuing to grow, we are 145,000 miles away from the Moon. And I think I previously said 123 miles from Earth. That's 123,000. So we are getting closer to that halfway point between the Earth and the Moon. We look forward to the opportunity to share some of these pictures that they are taking today, along with everything else during the mission. We did receive some beautiful images this morning from the crew as they departed Earth after the translunar injection burn yesterday. You can follow NASA on social media at NASA or at NASA Artemis to see these pictures as we receive them. This is Artemis Mission Control. Clearly, what you have on your screen is a visualization. We are in a loss of signal with the Artemis 2 crew and the Orion spacecraft. This was a tracked LOS while we are on the Deep Space Network. We expect to regain communications shortly. In the meantime, the crew using some of their lunch break to photograph Earth and the moon outside of the cabin windows.
lot of things.
This is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The crew aboard Orion conducting their CPR demo, learning how they would offer CPR to a crew member in need if the need ever arose on the spacecraft. Of course, this is just a demonstration and will be used for future training for future flyers. Another mission we fly in space are solar eruptions. Between the Apollo 16 and 17 the solar eruptions were a near miss for explorers. Today, those Apollo flares serve as a reminder of the threat of radiation exposure for astronauts and technology. Studying and predicting these solar eruptions is crucial for our safe exploration. Data, technology, and resources available to enable advancements for forecasts and astronaut protection. These are all key NASA program to return astronauts to the moon.
Okay. It's August 1972. Richardson is TV when the BBC announced
the interference is called active.
Then, but the sun had just erupted in powerful solar events ever recorded. There was no threat to humans because Earth's magnetic field deflects much of the sun's radiation. But the explosions were so powerful that intense radiation disrupted TV signals and caused radio blackouts. So what if you were outside Earth's magnetic field? On the moon and beyond, astronauts face the risk of extreme radiation exposure. Luckily, the intense radiation in 1972 occurred right between the Apollo 16 and 17 missions, when no astronauts were in their path. As NASA plans missions to go back to the moon and then onto Mars, predicting the sun's activity to protect astronauts from space radiation is one of our biggest priorities.
One of the biggest unknown factors about going to space is the radiation hazard from the sun.
This is Ian today, studying the effects of the sun, also known as the field of heliophysics.
The sun is always emitting radiation like the light we see, but certain energetic particles, like from the August 1972 events, can be far more harmful.
To be able to forecast solar energetic particles, we need to know how the sun energizes them. The sun is made up of electrically charged particles called plasma. As this plasma moves, it builds up energy inside its massive magnetic field. This energy is usually released in two types of explosions. Flares are intense flashes of light. Coronal mass ejections are giant eruptions of solar material.
These solar eruptions send shock waves across the solar system, accelerating particles as they go.
These are solar energetic particles, or SEPs. They consist mainly of protons and possess a lot of energy that can affect satellite measurements and humans.
SCPs can bombard you with a lot of radiation in a short period of time. They can penetrate your skin, damage your DNA, and increase your chances of getting cancer and radiation sickness.
But they don't occur with every solar eruption. Only a small number of flares and coronal mass ejections create SCPs.
So we're trying to predict when SCPs form and how they travel through space.
At NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, the Community Coordinated Modeling Center, or CCMC, is dedicated to testing prediction models. Working with global partners, they use data from NASA satellites at different vantage points and models to figure out how solar explosions behave, including how shockwaves energize SCPs. And as we get better at predicting, we get more time to prepare.
Preparation for an SCP event, of which you may know that is already coming, and perhaps the magnitude as well, the technique that you would want to use is to put as much mass between you and the source.
On the surface of the Moon or Mars, astronauts can go underground or build shelter with local materials. But in transit, astronauts can only be protected with what's on the spacecraft.
Which means that you might have elements on a spacecraft that have multiple purposes.
NASA's space radiation specialists are testing different ways to do this. One strategy they tested on the Orion spacecraft involves crew members barricading themselves with as much mass as possible in the center of the spacecraft. Other possible techniques in development include vests that add mass and electrically charged surfaces that deflect particles.
In terms of radiation protection and radiation mitigation, the factor of time is extraordinarily important.
The Sun has a natural 11-year cycle that transitions through low and high activity, which is indicated by the number of sunspots on the surface. More sunspots mean more eruptions, resulting in a higher risk for SCPs. But during this increased solar activity, the Sun's magnetic field strengthens, enhancing its shield against another important source of radiation, galactic cosmic rays. These are charged particles traveling at nearly the speed of light that are thought to come from supernova explosions from within our galaxy and possibly further out in the universe. If solar energetic particles are intense sporadic storms, then galactic cosmic rays are a constant drizzle. Galactic cosmic rays are more sparse, but also much more energetic. They include heavier elements that can penetrate through vast amounts of materials. Understanding the rate of galactic cosmic rays helps us determine how much time astronauts can spend in space safely. To date, humans have only been on the lunar surface for a cumulative total of about 12 days, A trip to Mars will take 6 to 10 months each way. That means even more radiation exposure. And so NASA is doing work to prepare for that.
The moon is going to be a test bed for us in order to be able to prepare for Mars. The more that we understand the impact and the duration of radiation on the moon, the more we can extrapolate that to the length of time that we will be spending in transit and on the surface of Mars.
You're looking at a live view of the outside of the Orion spacecraft. Specifically in this frame, you can see the European Service Module and the Orbital Maneuvering Service engine. And in the video we just watched about deep space radiation, you saw some team members demonstrating how they could use cargo transfer bags to help protect a crew from radiation exposure. That is something that this crew will test out as well. On flight day 8, they have a radiation shelter demo timeline. During that time, the crew will build a makeshift radiation shelter within the cabin and prepare the lockers on the spacecraft for ingress. Of course, this is just a demonstration and practice in case it were to be needed for a future mission. Orion is currently traveling 346 miles per hour, 120,100 miles from Earth, and 104,220 miles away from the Moon. If you're just tuning in with us today, we were expecting to have the trajectory correction burn this afternoon. But it was canceled as it was necessary following the injection yesterday to confirm on the proper trajectory to around the Moon and bring the crew home on flight day 10 with a splash in the Pacific Ocean. So they were able to cancel the outbound trajectory correction burn, and according to Christina Cook, we were able to enjoy snow day. This is Artemis Mission Control at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The Orbit 1 team is currently on console, but you'll see a lot of activity happening in the room as the Orbit 2 team control is staffed while in flight with Orion, and just down the International Space Station flight control has been now for over 25 years.
Houston, comm check, back with you on DSN.
We have you loud and clear.
Fantastic.
And Houston, we are complete with CPR demo if you want to get to normal.
We copy. Thanks, Christine.
This is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We have reestablished communications with the crew after a expected loss of communication through the Deep Space Network. We are now back in communication with them. The crew reported they just completed their CPR demo practice of how to execute CPR in the if need be. They were able to film this and their flight. This view on your screen, the camera mounted on one of Orion's arrays. Each solar array wing has its own camera and is currently pointed back to see all of us on Earth. Wave hello. You look great today.
And Houston, we're just curious about toilet. Is it off? Hands off right now.
Integrity, toilet is go for use.
Okay. Integrity copies.
This live view inside Orion of the Artemis 2 crew.
Integrity feedback on your camera position. For your information, the top third of the flags is not visible. And now where you're placing the flags, I can see all of them. On the bottom part of the image, I can see about midway on Christina's calves, and I can see Victor's head and the camera to the in the right side of the field of view from the perspective of this camera. Thumbs look great. Christina is well fitted in the frame.
Christina Koch, Jeremy Hansen, Victor Glover. Congratulations to all of you. America, the world is with you. We are watching every moment of this journey, and
This is Mission Control Houston and the Artemis flight control room. Elapsed time 14 hours, 21 minutes and counting. We are coming to you live with our 24/7 continuous coverage. Currently, the Orion spacecraft is 83,000 miles away from Earth and 172,000 miles away from the Moon. As we go over the course of the rest of the day and coming into the next day when the crew you will see the distance from Earth increase and distance to the Moon decrease, and that we are getting around the Moon on 26. Performed the transit yesterday at 6:49 p.m. 40 minutes, 5 minutes 49 to get to fly around the Moon as I shared, and then to down the coast of the ocean. Following the we had lunch and several activities being adaptation with them more comfortable in a microenvironment. They also did some fairs of they then began their long period, and they are you can check it yourself by visiting /track. Now, this is Wilson.
on these were stuck, enable caution.
Caution for the custom stuck caution. As a result of the maneuver we're doing for the system we're doing right now, didn't predict that to happen. We apologize. Y'all can head back to bed.
To this control room, you are hearing a conversation between controlman and the ground here. What is happening on the ground is you're conducting a rings on the crew module and service module. In our data visual now, what it's essentially doing right now is they are surveying the spacecraft for any damage. There are any and unfortunately, in the cabin, as we heard Commander Tyler survey, as I mentioned, that one surveying activity to make sure the post coming to mission control. Good morning from Mission Control, Houston. You are seeing live from one of the solar array aboard the Orion spacecraft. As mentioned not too long ago, there is surveying activity taking place while the crew is asleep. This is where the flight control teams on the ground here array to take a look at the command module outside of your screen as well as the spacecraft. This surveying activity essentially checks for launch. The team on the ground will conduct additional surveying activity. Activity of the Integrity spacecraft. The top part of the view where you see NASA worm logo is the module, and below that is the European Space Agency's service module. 14 hours and 36 minutes counting.
Good morning. Artemis Flight Control Room here and Mission Control. I'm Nilofer Ramji with NASA Communications. As part of your orbit three flight control team, we are coming to you live with 24/7 continuous coverage of the Artemis 2 mission. The mission allowed time of 15 hours and it's counting within the period, and they're expecting just 3 hours from now. This week on this side of the planet, we're happy to share the first downlink from the Artemis astronauts. There we have our image back, but we see our seeing the eyes sharing not just for and that's all. We also have a second taken by Fernando Reed. And it's the same they just captured. It's no matter how far go, we are still in the world getting higher. We'll use this image for a couple of minutes. Houston. from here in Houston at a time of 1:15. They're coming to you 20 coverage of the S2 mission, getting their first night's full sleep prior session. Now, for now, as groups, let's look back.
Have you on video? Go. We can take out best and having see you always smiling voices and we were the interview. That's true.
From around looking back at all of us.
If possible, where the company a bit is a lot of
copy, we understand.
Here or B are scheduled to take place under an hour of plans and help that ignition.
And Christina, good morning to y'all with us. We can do a quick tactical leap.
And this is Mission Control Houston. That engine there on the over to Earth loop. And the between Ryan's. So was Ashley Cook, who was much supposed to be running. Again, there are 40 integrity.
You can reduce a bit more ventilation. It's hard.
Yeah, so I always the points. We saw a so we're going to delay the haters, and when we start putting some of that in work, the temperature positively. And text then the soil position.
And this is Troy. He's in and out from the break. To July, the Ryan's very lowest, but it was like a jump into the next. And actually, is down. And on your screen, you can see the engines on these craft. As it shows because we currently have access to itself. This is the measurement of the craft. And on your screen, you're seeing a live view of the craft from this array. We can also see the solar wings on the bottom right hand of your screen of your Orion. As live view comes following after Brace burn.
Yes. In a couple hours.
Good morning. Bring the Earth. Send home. Flight day.
From Europe, 3, branch.
We're so proud of the to the moon.
If you are ready to go.
Good afternoon, I'm in the control room here. This is Johnson, Texas. Take your name. Lunar and Jack and 9 p.m. Central Time. On the OMS. Also, the crew is okay. Run up until translunar injections are.
Integrity.
To mission flying 150 miles of Earth and 246 miles from the moon. We have started the translator and crew on the moon for 50 years. We're down to engine. These logs coming from Orion as attack on orbit and begin to of Earth. 275 miles away. Stars at orbit.
Very good.
Here on the ground, do crew of Orion, trailer injection and cuff, and Orion, now 520 miles away from Earth, only 15 miles above surface. That distance will continue increasing now on a trajectory for the moon for time in 50 years. Values for the that looks at Japan's lunar and burn. It's flying around the stable plan like take flash and go. It is Earth, Orion, history.
We just want to hear a little bit of send energy on the and we're over just outside in a moment. With that, my crew's from here on the moon, and we just went to figure one who's working on this probably firmly into that.
Above it. As we are and back home. Currently around 223,000 miles away from it. This is artificial MT or hours and Artemis humans run for 50 years. And we're after a successful trailer and we are now 90,500 miles away from and 20,000 miles away from it. The view on the left side of your screen, look back at our that small dot. And down on the screen, you can see cap coverage of her. Which is director through and
allow the weight of the moon to really thin here. You see the entire pole. You see after and it's really close. You can see the was the caused all of us interacts.
Christina, congratulations to all of you. And we will back. And the long way to you and
National Space Station
the middle of it.
Now it's just the cameras that use the articulate for the line. I'm sure that wasn't a big activity flexible activity, so I wasn't sure how something in the safe not.
Absolutely. Early, so just check there, your target, and if you are happy with how you would set up FIA, then you are welcome to, you need to set up a...
Understood. It's hard to test how effective it is in a traffic lens. Short lens, lens. Don't forget to take a picture of point B, you know.
Please.
Control in Texas. There's a meeting there, Space Agency. Jeremy Hansen and Palmer. We're here in Mission Control. That was an activity. Assessment